What's going on, guys? Monero Matteo. We are in nature. We're here to rejuvenate a little bit, to refill the spiritual juices, to become one again with the world beyond. I think we can get pretty caught up sometimes, especially as I continue to use Twitter more, which is new to me. I mean, before this Twitter, I didn't really have a Twitter. I didn't really have a social media. I've been off social media for quite a long time. And being off social media, guys, just if you guys don't know the experience, it's sort of like you're much more connected, but in a different way. I feel more connected to nature. I feel much more connected to God when I'm off social media. And just life is a lot simpler. You have less to worry about. There's less information overflow. And, you know, on Twitter, there's a lot of the stuff going on about Afghanistan and, the refugee situation and what the Fed is doing, talking about tapering, which they're not going to do. And just, there's all this stuff going on, especially in this particular environment that we're moving into where the collapse is really starting to pick up pace. And I think a lot of people are catching on to that. We've known about this in our community, I think, for longer than most. We've seen this coming, which is why we have the positions that we have. But it's nevertheless distressing a little bit. You know, you don't like to see your country and your civilization fall apart. You don't like that. But this is why we have the positions that we do, and we're ready for it. We're prepared for it. And we're ready for anything because we believe in Jesus Christ, and no matter what happens, He's walking with us, and He's going to make all things right. But I want to talk a little bit about Monero. I want to talk about a little bit some of the developments, some comments that I've received on my videos. And I want to talk about a question that Techno, one of our friends, had about what the world would look like if everyone used Monero. And so first off, I want to say that atomic swaps are coming along amazingly. It seems that the tech for that is becoming more readily adapted and adopted to users. Seth for Privacy, follow him on Twitter. He was doing some atomic swaps on the mainnet recently. And I imagine as it becomes much more normalized for people because it becomes easier to use. I think Samurai Wallet is going to be integrating atomic swaps. I imagine Cake Wallet's going to be doing the same thing, which, by the way, Cake Wallet, our sponsor, shout out. We love Cake Wallet. Go ahead and get signed up with those guys. They're key. But as atomic swaps become much more integrated, become much more user-friendly to conduct, I think that it's going to be very bullish for Monero because let me tell you what, I know some pretty intelligent people, but even these people have some trouble figuring out how to buy Monero. I mean, they're not making it easy on us, guys. And so you can't really get it at a lot of exchanges. And even if you did, you would think to yourself, well, these exchanges are heavily regulated. It's not like I'm going to be buying these things privately. So how do I get this stuff? How do I get exposure to a private currency privately? And so a lot of people just give up and they say, whatever, we're going to go for gains and buy Cumrocket or something. But atomic swaps, I imagine, are going to be something which facilitates the establishment of many on-ramps for people. And that's going to be bullish. It's going to be great. And my buddy Neil, actually, I've been telling him to get into Monero and some of these other cryptos for a long time. And he was always like, dude, I'm not smart enough to do this. Like, I barely know how to open up a Coinbase account and buy Ethereum or something. And so I was like, hey, dude, just check out KuCoin, check out Trade Ogre. Just buy your Bitcoin on Coinbase, send it to one of these exchanges, and then swap it. That's all you got to do. It's easy. And so he just got Monero for the first time recently, which is amazing, which, guys, that's how the revolution is done. It's done by just telling your friends to buy Monero and teaching them how to do it. It's, I think, going to be easier in the future to do it, but seriously, that's how it's done. Open up payment channels, If you want to buy something from like a mom and pop shop, or if you want to pay somebody for a service, ask them, hey, you got a Monero wallet? You got a Cake wallet? Check it. I'm about to send you like the new, coolest, awesome form of money in the world, and you're going to really enjoy it. And once you get it, you're going to be hooked. And you're going to start accepting Monero from everybody. And maybe you get to the point where it's just like, we only accept Monero. That'd make your life a lot easier. And Techno, he had asked what the world's going to look like when Monero becomes one of the main currencies. And I think it's going to be one of the main currencies. I don't think it's going to be the only currency, because we don't know yet if Monero can scale to encompass all the transactions that are going to be happening for however many billion people. That's still questionable. Yes, we have dynamic block size. It's definitely much more scalable than Bitcoin. But whether or not it can actually get up to Visa level transactions is another question. With the computing power we have, with the necessity to store all the transactions on the blockchain, I mean, that's a lot of data, that's a lot of work that miners are going to have to do and node operators are going to have to do. And so we're going to see about that. But I imagine what would happen if a lot of people use Monero is that, as with gold and silver, there would be like two sets of books for a lot of people. And this was very common back, in the gold standard era, when gold and silver were the only uses of exchange, the only mediums of exchange, other than like maybe whiskey or something. But a lot of people kept two sets of books, because that's how the government audited how much tax that they owed. Was the government would come and say, hey, show me your books, show me your business, and let me see your profit margins, your revenues, your expenses, let me see everything being accounted for. And a lot of people would have a set of books for the tax man, and a set of books for investors, and a set of books for the accountant, I guess you could say, who had the real deal. And I imagine it's going to be something like that. And I want to address one particular critique of Monero, which is that governments aren't going to want to adopt it. And I just want to say that I think that is not the case. I think that governments will actually love to adopt it. And with these atomic swaps come out, it could very well be that if governments start to accept Bitcoin for tax payments, which we'll see how that works out. I think we're still a long way away from that. But if that does happen, this is what would happen. The government would then atomically swap the Bitcoin for Monero, and then they would just spend that money on whatever. Because if you guys haven't looked into Catherine Austin Fitts, you need to look into her. Look into Dr. Mark Skidmore. Dr. Mark Skidmore is an accountant. He's like a public budget professor. He's a PhD, really smart guy. He and his graduate students one summer were looking through the accounting documents, the financial statements for HUD, Housing Urban Development, and the Department of Defense, I believe was the other. And they found $21 trillion of undocumented adjustments, what they call undocumented adjustments, which is basically just missing money. It's unaccounted for money. And so with the government, you have money slushing around everywhere. And it's largely unaccounted for. A lot of that money probably goes to the CIA. A lot of that money gets paid to moderate rebels, I guess you could say, to fund colored revolutions and regime changes and things like this. There are a lot of nefarious things which happens behind the scenes with governments, of course. And so you don't think that they would like to use Monero to transact privately and exchange value privately? Of course they would. Of course they would. So I don't think that would so much be the case, but I think a lot of people have this idea that if Monero became like the world reserve currency or something like that, everybody was using Monero, then nobody would pay their taxes. Well, that's not true. You'd have to, if you're running a business, be having some taxable income come in, which is why you have to keep a set of books. And even though you're receiving all your money in Monero, you're going to need to at least prove to the government that, yeah, you're getting income in somehow, you're paying your expenses somehow, and yeah, that's where these set of books come in. So I don't think that's a reasonable argument that governments wouldn't adopt Monero. I think they would use Monero for sure. In fact, my boss, he says that Bitcoin would be for businesses, Litecoin would be for people, and then Monero would be for the government. So he thinks like the main users of Monero would be the governments. I disagree on that. I think Monero should be for everybody. Maybe Pirate Chain would be for the people, and Monero would be for the governments. We'll see. But I think that's a faulty argument, and I think it's a faulty argument that the governments, like, it wouldn't be able to be used as a currency in a society of governments because nobody would pay their tax. I think a lot of people would probably cheat on their taxes, but I don't think nobody would pay their tax. I think that's a stretch. Because how did governments get funded before the advent of finance and tech, or fintech, I guess you could say? Well, people had gold and silver. A lot of that stuff wasn't auditable. A lot of that stuff was, of course, private. People held their gold and silver under the floorboards with their private books, right? But, yeah, I don't think that's reasonable. But some other things I want to comment on. And guys, let me know what you think about that. I'm interested in your thoughts on the arguments we just made. But also, as you watch this, like the video. It helps me with the algorithms. I think we're putting out good content. I think we're changing minds. But the next thing I wanted to talk about was more comments that I'm receiving in regards to people, again, kind of obsessing over the gains. I received a comment from a nice gentleman. I think he's well-meaning. On one of our videos, he was talking about how he had sold all of his Monero because the gains just weren't there. And he was saying that people don't care about their privacy, which is a comment that I've heard more and more and more. Like, people don't care about their privacy, people don't care about their freedom. I don't think this is true. I think what is actually happening is that people have been either A, convinced that Bitcoin is anonymous, which it is not. B, Bitcoin isn't anonymous right now, but the Lightning Network will make it anonymous enough. And we have a lot to talk about in regards to that. I'm doing a research paper on that, probably for the patrons. C, they don't know about Monero. And if they do know about Monero, they think that it's some kind of like evil, ominous black market currency, and just by going to buy it, they get put on a list or something like that, which Perkins Coie has come out with a paper saying that Monero is in perfect compliance. It's in perfect regulatory alignment. There's nothing wrong with Monero in regards to its relationship with the state so far. D, they just don't know about Monero. They don't know about freedom coins, which is what we call it. We call these things freedom coins, guys. We don't call them privacy coins. And sometimes it slips out of my mouth, but we have to understand that if it's not private, it's not a currency because it's not fungible. Like, that's so fundamental for you guys to get. That's like so fundamental. It's like crypto 101, but a lot of people just missed that. And then we could go on down the line as to why people aren't getting into Monero. It could also be the fact that exchanges are making it difficult for people to buy it, as we said before. Can't really go on Coinbase, can't really go on a lot of the readily accessible exchanges to buy this stuff. So yeah, there are many reasons why people aren't getting into it. I could go on. So F, I don't think a lot of people understand the society that we're going into. I don't think people have, for whatever reason. I mean, to us, this is obvious, to us in this community, but you have to understand a lot of people are just living day to day. They're not watching the news. They're not connecting the dots that we're connecting here on this channel. And so a lot of people are just in the dark as to the darkness which is enveloping them, right? And we're trying to bring them to the light, but we have to first show them the fact that, yeah, these blockchain forensics analytics companies are figuring out everything that's going on the blockchain. They're going to suck your wealth out probably through unrealized capital gains, which we've done videos about. They're going to see everything that you do as far as transactions are concerned. And it's going to be possible for them to pretty much blacklist your coins and cut you off from the financial system. And if you don't know who Bednar is, he's done interviews with Monero Talks. He's talked about how if just 10% 10% of all the Bitcoin miners agree to comply with OFAC blacklist, which we talked about in one of our videos about Monero recently, if just 10% comply with the regulations of OFAC, the regulations with FATF, which is to say that you can't mine or process transactions which are on a blacklist, from addresses which are on a blacklist, then that is enough to pretty much ensure that there is sort of like a game theoretical network system which is put into place which disincentivizes everybody else from mining those coins. And so those coins are essentially like shut out of the network. And so that can happen. And are we to believe that not even 10% of all the Bitcoin mining operations in the world are going to be regulated by a global financial action task force which looks out for this stuff? I don't think so, especially if they're not friendly to crypto, which a lot of them aren't, because they're rolling out their digital currencies, which are competitors to these cryptos. And so even if you can finagle your way into believing this wouldn't be the case, the fact that it could be the case adds an extra layer of risk that you need to take into account when you invest in these cryptos, right? You need to discount that into your strategy, your investment strategy. And Monero doesn't have that. It doesn't have that risk factor associated with it. They may try to make it harder for you to use Monero. They may try to make it harder for you to get Monero, but that's going to be bypassed by the atomic swaps. And the growing darknet market. More people are going to learn how to use the darknet. So even if you're not doing anything necessarily illegal, if you want to use Monero, you can probably just go on there and accept payments. Now, I don't recommend people use the darknet market. Personally, I don't use it. But you guys do you. You guys do whatever you want. But for me, I'm not tech savvy enough to do that. One of the reasons I use Monero is because I'm not tech savvy. Like, I can't figure out how to remain anonymous. Clearly, look at me. I'm on camera talking about privacy coins. Like, seriously, or freedom coins. But yeah, I think that there are many reasons why it is people haven't moved to Monero yet. But the atomic swaps are going to help with that. The decentralized exchanges are going to help with that. The growing awareness of technocratic tyranny is going to help with that. And honestly, guys, just our community is going to help with that. Us sharing these videos, us talking to our families about this, us getting our friends to buy this stuff and getting other people to transact with Monero. Like, this is the real revolution. That's how it happens, guys. You guys are the revolution. We all have capacities to make this happen. Whenever you go somewhere to a small mom and pop shop, just say, hey, you guys accept Monero? I mean, even if they say no, at least it's on their radar. Like, somebody went in wanting to pay in Monero. Okay, that's a business opportunity for them that they're going to look into. So just think about this stuff, guys. Just think about it. This stuff is important. And we've got to fight back. We've got to fight back. Like, we've got to have this be an active movement. Because, look, if we're just sitting around day trading crypto, if we're just sitting around trying to just finagle into these things for the gains, like, you're going to miss the point as to what's happening. Like, it doesn't matter how rich you are if you are in a world of slavery and servitude. I'd rather be a poor man in a free world than a rich man in an unfree world. But look, guys, if you get into Monero now, if we bet on this, right, that Monero and Christ and other things which are happening now, I mean, like, just as an aside, guys, the spiritual energy is palpable everywhere. Like, I think a lot of you guys, and I think a lot of other people out there, are having massive infusions of some seriously spiritual energy. And I feel it in my life. Like, there are so many coincidences, what we call providence. There are so many providential occurrences happening. There's so many people coming back to the church. There's so many people starting YouTube channels talking about holistic medicine, like taking Tai Chi classes or whatever. Like, there's a lot happening in regards to that. And I don't think that's coincidence. I don't think that's just random happenstance. I think people feel something huge coming. And I think people are getting their spirits set right. which is why we talk about Christ a lot in this channel. But if we up our moral game, if we up our spiritual game, if we up our financial game, we work out and do everything else, which is good. If we just have good relationships in our lives where we don't allow people to BS us, where we are straightforward and honest with people, and we have honest, decent relationships, and, peaceful parenting and all that stuff, right? Steph Molyneux talks a lot about that. I mean, we could really make huge, huge, huge changes. So, guys, just a lot of stuff happening. But as I was saying before, if you bet on Monero, and we really end up in a free world, and we end up winning, which I think we will, just have faith, guys. Just seriously, have faith. Fight. Like, a lot of you guys have despair out there. You want to cure that despair, you stand up and you fight. Just fighting in and of itself gives you hope, because you're taking action, and you don't have time to think about being in despair. Okay? Because it's all or nothing once you get into the fight. It's all or nothing. Like, I could have gone on and worked at a big accounting firm and, had decent pay. And I could have been a gray man in the back stacking my sats and getting into Monero and buying more pirate chain and stuff like this. But no, it's like, I realized that if we don't fight this, then first off, we're going to kind of be ashamed of ourselves, because this is truly the time of destiny for humanity on so many fronts. And two, if we live in this world that I think we're heading into, if we don't win, if we don't succeed, the amount of money we have just won't really matter. That's what I explained to this commenter. I said, hey, respectfully, man, I get you're trying to go after the gains. I get why you sold your Monero. I get that the price movements are attractive right now for a trader. And you want to get into these other coins which you think are bullish because there's hype, and many other YouTube channels making these bogus doofus grifting price predictions. Like, okay, that's cool. We'd love to have you still part of this revolution, man. But if you're just going to go after gains, like, I think you're missing the point in this channel. And I'm sorry to see you go. I'm sorry to see you head that way, really. Because it's kind of a path of degeneracy, in my opinion. But I'm sorry to see you head that way, but we're trying to save the world, really. We're trying to really save the world, guys. And the gains are ephemeral. They just slip between your fingers. It all passes through time. But things that stick around forever are your good works, are the acts of virtue that you enact in this world, your courage, your temperance, the justice. That stuff's real. The gains, they're only around for so long. And who knows what stupid things you'll do with that, right? Like, as we've talked about before, your wealth and your gains, it doesn't mean you're going to be happy, guys. It doesn't mean you're going to be free. In fact, it could lead you to ever more servitude. Money in and of itself, I think, steals a lot of people's freedoms once they get it. They get obsessed about it, sort of like that guy out of The Hobbit, where he discovers like the dragon's lair with all the gold, and he just becomes obsessed, and he turns into like a demon. And he ends up dying, right? I think he ends up dying over his greed overtaking him. But yeah, that's all I have to say for today. The world would be beautiful, Techno, to answer your question, with Monero, Christ, crypto and Christ. That's what we're all about. Guys, this is Monero Matteo. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Spend some time in nature. Spend some time with your families. Get right with Christ. Get Monero and get your friends into Monero. And have faith. We're on the right track. We're doing good things here. Just keep the pace, okay? But follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Odyssey, especially. We're really kicking ass on Odyssey. Follow me on Twitter and Gab and Telegram. I'll have the links below. And God bless. Love you.